welcome to We Poets. My name is Sally Baker and I'm the host of We Poets. We Poets is a poetry show for boys and girls between the ages of 6 and 13. But we're doing a special series called Battlefield Poets, and I'm interviewing veterans who have been in combat in past wars or the current war and who are coming back home. And I'm also interviewing agencies that represent help for the veterans. So tonight we have two special guests, and my first guest is Mr. Andre DeCordova. He is a veteran. And my second guest is Dr. Katrina Peters. She's a psychiatrist. And they're both going to tell us something about the important work they do to help our veterans. So without further ado, we're going to talk first to Andre. Hi, Andre. How are you tonight?
I'm just fine, thank you.
I'm so glad you could come and tell us all about your former military experience. Would you look there at the camera and tell us what branch of the service did you serve in, please?
I was in the United States Navy from 1962 through 64.
And where were you stationed?
I was stationed for a time in Great Lakes, Illinois, and I was also stationed on a destroyer on the East Coast.
And how is life on a ship? I can imagine it would be very confining, wouldn't it be?
Especially, that's why they call it destroyer. The tin can is very small and it is very tight.
And about how many men were on the ship at the same time that you were?
Maybe about 400, I think.
Oh, that's a lot of men.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And how frequently did you get back to port?
Well, we went out for maybe for 2 weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks. I'm trying to remember now because that's been some time ago. Uh-huh. But no more than 30 days.
No more than 30 days?
No more than 30 days, and we would come back to port. At that time, we weren't at war. Mm-hmm. The war started up really bad in 1965, and so by that time I was out. So my service was peacetime, mm-hmm. and so which is actually, I think, the best kind. Yes. And then too, by the same token, being in the Navy and having 3 hots and a cot, and not having to worry about any real serious danger.
Yes, but the men that have been in the current war, they really were in danger, right?
And the men that were in Vietnam too, as well.
Yes.
Yes,
and women too.
Women too, excuse me.
Are there many women in the Navy in past wars and the present war?
Oh yeah, uh-huh. Through World War II, through the present, and I guess over the periods of time, the descriptions of jobs have changed,
right.
Maybe somewhat.
Right. Uh-huh. Now tell us, what do you do currently?
I'm an academic counselor for the Veteran Education Benefit Program at City College of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. And what do your duties consist of?
I work with the veterans to help them develop an educational plan and some guidance about the courses that they're going to take to reach their academic goals. The VA is very strict about the programs, and they have to have a specific program and an educational plan to go along with this. And so all of the credit and all of the units are accounted for. And so that's my job, is to keep it straight so that they're going to be in compliance with the VA and not be overpaid, underpaid, or having to run into any difficulty.
Okay, so if a veteran was coming in for the first time to your office to seek help, what would be the steps that you would take to help him?
After finding out whether or not they were okay or not, and really I don't have to worry about that because actually we have the VA in the office. We have psychiatrist that comes, we have a social worker, and even a psychologist, and we have a benefits person that comes. And then now, recently, as of this week, we have a person from the Disabled Student Services who is going to be with us too a couple of times a week to work with the veterans in order so that they'll be able to get, the access to services that will help them in their classes and whatnot from that department. Mm-hmm. But my first, that's at the beginning, I'm kind of talking over. At the beginning, I start right away developing the educational plan, and usually that's what veterans are really after is, how long it's going to be before I get paid, because, the way that the situation is economically, and there are not many jobs, and they're calling me from ships and from the East Coast and everywhere. and they're wanting to get out of the military right away and hit the ground running with the educational benefit, because it seems like that's the best way to go right now. And they're paying by the zip code, so San Francisco is the highest, except New York, I think, is the highest paying zip code in the United States. And so a lot of veterans, as opposed to being in another state or either further down the state, they will come to San Francisco because the pay is going to be higher, but they don't realize sometimes the cost of living is going to be higher too as well.
Yes.
So we run into some problems with the economic situation and whatnot. But I do the educational plan, and then we request to have their program certified, which means something is transmitted electronically to the VA, and then by and by, then they're going to be able to receive the benefit.
Now, are most of the veterans that you help, like you say, most of them are in San Francisco? The majority of the ones that you help?
We have veterans that live as far north as Sacramento and as far west as Modesto, who drive in and take classes just so that they can get that BAH. I guess they feel that they're going to be that much ahead if they take that San Francisco basic housing allowance, as opposed to being short maybe $400 or $500 from what they would get in their own regional area. So yeah, we've got folks all over the place, and some are taking classes online, plus taking classes at our institution, and all of these, it's a shell game. It's a shell game that has to be played so that the veteran can get the most out of their educational benefit.
Right.
Unfortunately, with the post 9/11 benefit, they've only got 36 months like they've always had. They've got 15 years to use it, but they use it during the community college years. And the tuition is not very expensive during that, for the community college. And when they get transferred to the university, then they might not have very much of a benefit left, where the tuition is thousands of dollars, So it's a double-edged sword, like I said, and I recommend that they apply for financial aid and see if they can maybe use the benefit one semester and maybe not the other, and try to make it last as long as they possibly can.
Do most of the veterans that you counsel are they married and have children, or are they single?
Most of the guys are single, although there are many that are married and who have families, but a lot are single. And then those that have families, that brings about a whole nother issue about the dynamic of the relationships and family relationships, and whether or not they're suffering from either post-traumatic stress disorder, or either they might have a traumatic brain injury to maybe a very slight degree to maybe something more serious. And so that's where the VA kicks in, and that's where they receive treatment and advice from there, and unfortunately some of the veterans have to drop out because due to these issues they can't do the education right now, and they have to get the treatment and then, if possible, come back and try it again later.
About how many of the veterans that you counsel have lost a leg or an arm in battle?
I haven't seen any.
Oh, that's good.
I haven't seen any, but I do see a lot that have the other two issues that I'm talking about, the post-traumatic stress disorder and mild TBI, traumatic brain injury. I do see that.
Now, were you injured in the war?
No, I was not. After I got out of the war, after I got out of the military in 1964, I had an auto accident in 1967.
Oh.
And that's what happened to me. And I was a machinist at the time. And so myself too, I had to turn around and go back and be retrained. And even though I didn't like it, go to the university and do what I needed to do in order to enjoy a much better quality of life.
Yes, and were you pleased with the benefits that you received from the VA?
At the time, I was happy to get whatever I could get.
Yes,
Yes, I was. I was pleased. And then, too, by the same token, you know, the service, I get all of my outpatient treatment at the VA. And so they've, over the last 40 some odd years, they've been very, very generous to me. And I really appreciate everything I've gotten.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything else you'd like to put out to our watching audience, especially our veterans, that might help them to get services that they need, physical and mental?
Well, if they're in Oakland, I think that probably that they're going to be looking at the downtown clinic in Oakland. If I'm not mistaken, maybe Dr. Peters is going to be able to talk more about that issue maybe later on. I'm not sure, but I think that that's one of the places where they're going to start. They have a VA clinic in Oakland, and that's where they can get started with that. As far as San Francisco folks, or either anybody who's interested in coming to City College of San Francisco, I think the number's going to be posted. But anyway, the office number is 415-239-3486, and we're open Monday through Friday from 8 until 4.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much. We're going to hear from you at the end of our program after I interview Dr. Peters. But thank you so much for coming and putting this wonderful information out to our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. Welcome back. I'm Sally Baker, the host. I would now like to introduce you to my special guest, and her name is Dr. Katrina Peters. She's a psychiatrist, and she's going to tell us all about this interesting work she does, helping veterans readjust back into normal life. Hi, Dr. Peters.
Hi, good evening.
How are you tonight?
Fine, thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm so glad you could come. So please tell us what your title is, and where you work, and what you do to help our veterans.
I am at the University of California at San Francisco, where I've been on the faculty since 1989, and I help train residents and medical students and other trainees in the School of Medicine. But I do clinical training, so I primarily have been working in psychiatric emergency services for the last 15 years. I also work 1 day a week in Oakland at Advanced Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation Clinic, which primarily works to help people with physical medicine problems, but often those kind of problems cause people to have emotional issues, so I've been working there in consultation.
Good, and I'm sure you've seen many patients.
Oh yes, always plenty of work.
Are most of your patients men or women, or about equal?
It varies. At the Psychiatric Emergency Services, which primarily serves people who are either in a crisis, either who are brought in involuntarily or they come on their own, that tends to be a mixture of men and women, with maybe perhaps more men. At the Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation Clinic, that is more of a mixture of men and women.
Mm-hmm. And what is the ethnic breakdown of these patients that you see?
I would say the ethnic breakdown is reflective of the diverse ethnic groups that we have in the Bay Area, and we see people from many ethnic groups. We also even see people who may not speak English, especially monolingual Spanish-speaking patients, and also some Asian languages. I've even had some Bosnian refugees.
Really?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you speak a foreign language?
Oh, only high school French.
You probably don't have many French patients, right?
Not as many. We
Yes.
do get some Haitian patients and some other French national patients or patients who may be of African background who may speak French, but we don't get as much a call for that as we do for the other languages.
Yes. Now, my next question. What is the difference between the veterans returning from Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Persian Gulf, and the veterans who have returned from Vietnam and Korea?
I think that the more recent veterans have some unique issues that were not necessarily found with the veterans from Korea and Vietnam. Many of the veterans more recently have had multiple tours of duty where they have been consecutive tours, so that many times when they do come back to civilian life, they have had many more experiences and exposure to traumatic incidences than some of the other veterans. That's not to say that veterans from Korea and Vietnam have not experienced great tragic, traumatic experiences, but I think that's one of the main differences. The other difference is this are some of the first time that you have women who have been in combat roles. Women certainly have been as part of the armed services since World War II and have had many roles, but this is the first real length of time where you've had women with combat roles, which exposes them to a different kind of trauma than maybe in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are these women like young or middle-aged, or what age group do they fall into?
I would say most of the women who are more recent veterans, and particularly those who were involved in the wars, tend to be younger, in their 20s, maybe their 30s.
Mm-hmm. Do you get patients who talk about how they were treated, like maybe sexually in the military?
We do get some women who have had some sexual traumatic experiences by some of their fellow servicemen when they're in active duty. Many women don't want to talk about it. Sometimes they don't talk about it directly during the time when they are active in the Army or in the Coast Guard or whatever the service they're in, because of fear of retaliation or fear of not being seen as part of the team. So sometimes the women keep this hidden, and it may come up later after they're having difficulties adjusting to their civilian life.
Mm-hmm. Now, about what is the length of time that you see a patient on an average?
In the emergency services, that's primarily crisis treatment, where people come in and they are evaluated within the hour. We use a team approach to evaluate the patients that come in, and they may be seen once during their stay by someone as myself, although most of the patients who come in the emergency services are probably going to have to stay for 12 to 24 hours. Mm-hmm. If a patient needs to be admitted inpatient and they are a veteran and they have veteran-connected benefits, we will usually try to see if one of the veteran hospitals in the area will accept them. However, often those beds are full and patients may have to either be admitted in a community hospital or they may have to stay in our emergency services for several days until they're stabilized. In my other position, where I do consultation, I may see a person the initial time for about 45 minutes to an hour to try to understand what their issues are and how I may help them. I may recommend that they have more intensive counseling. I may recommend that they have medication. If they want to continue, afterwards I would see them on a periodic basis, perhaps anywhere from every 2 weeks to monthly until they were stabilized. There are some patients who are also being seen at the veterans clinics, but because of sometimes the length of time it takes for them to get in to see someone for mental health care at this juncture, they may go into the community to seek treatment.
Mm-hmm. Then are most of the patients quite violent or not so violent?
I would say that for the patients where their first contact is psychiatric emergency services, I think it really depends on the situation under which they come to our attention. Some veterans are not aware about the dangers of untreated mental health problems and may come, when they come back into the community, may not seek that type of help. Sometimes the first time that they may find out that there are problems may be if there's domestic violence that develops or some other type of violence that they may have been unprepared for. Otherwise, sometimes you have people who come on an emergency because they become overwhelmed with depression and suicidal ideation and may make some type of an attempt. So those are the most acute and extreme kind of circumstances, but often that may be someone's first contact with mental health services. I think that many veterans don't want to identify as having emotional problems related to their service. It doesn't seem to be a very military way of being. So I think that not everyone will seek treatment until they are having severe problems.
Mm-hmm. Now, quickly before we end this session, you have something here you wanted to show, a newspaper article, please. Could you hold that up to camera 3?
Okay. Just briefly, this was an article that was published in the San Francisco Chronicle, January 3rd of this year. And the reason why I brought it is because there are studies going on in collaboration with UCSF and with the Veterans Hospital and with police academies both in the Bay Area and New York. And their goal is to try to see if they can find if there are biological markers that can help them identify who are going to be the people who are going to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. And if they're able to do that, we're able to get more help sooner.
Okay, well, I want to thank you so much. We're going to do our grand finale and have our other guests join us. So thank you, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Boys and girls, stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment. And now, before we end our program, I would like for both of our guests to give us some parting words. So we're going to start with Dr. Peters first.
Thank you. I would like to remind everyone that there is no shame in having emotional or mental health issues. And I invite everyone, and particularly our veterans, our men and women who have served so grandly for our country, if you are having trouble adjusting to your life here, please contact your local Veterans Association or clinic, and if they're not able to see you in enough time, please make use of the community clinics that may be available to you, because the sooner that you can seek help, the sooner that you can get the treatment that you may need and to be able to go on with the life that you need and want to have.
And again, would you give us your telephone number and address?
Yes, I'll give the number for the Oakland Clinic, which is 510-465-3668.
Good. And Andre, would you like to have some parting words for us, please?
Yes, when I had my opportunity, I left out one very important thing, and that was that Our veterans are showing so much resilience as they're coming back, even though they've got so many difficulties and hardships that they might be working with, they might be working through within. Still, nevertheless, they're taking advantage of the GI Bill and getting busy and trying to look forward to the future. In addition to that, we have a Veterans Alliance program at City College of San Francisco that is available for the veterans. So veterans who are interested in coming to City College of San Francisco, there is also a community of veterans who are willing to accept their brethren as they come.
Good. And again, could you give us the address and the telephone number where people could contact you if they need help?
Well, it's City College of San Francisco, and our website is www.ccsf.edu, and then the telephone number is 415-239-3543.
Good. Well, I want to thank you both for coming and putting out this wonderful information to our veterans, and you both are to be commended for the wonderful work you're doing to help our veterans heal. And I thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yes. And boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say, if you know, our program is a program for children, We Poets, and we're always looking for youngsters to come. Teachers can refer the children, or parents can call me and tell me they have a child to be on our show. And we also offer a free internship for middle school and high school kids, and they learn how to produce our program. And I give them credit, high school credit, for doing this. And I'm also looking for guests like our two guests here tonight to come and tell young people something about their careers that young people can pursue when they graduate from high school or college. And we're a nonprofit organization, so we always need contributions to bring you a new show each week. So we hope you'll tune in next week for another show of Battlefield Poets. Let's all wave goodnight. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye-bye.